Hello, this is David William Weissner, and this is another episode of David Speaks. On this episode, we're going to talk about what it's like to be in a psychiatric hospital. Um, as I've mentioned before in this channel, I have bipolar disorder. I've had this since the age of 19, and I've been in a lot of hospitals, at least 8 that I can think of right now. And the conditions in some of them were just atrocious. They were abusive. Some of them, some of them had good doctors. Some of them had real assholes. It depends a lot where you go. The first time I was in for a long time, when I was like 20, 21, I was in a hospital in Staten Island called South Beach Psychiatric Center. And I was in this hospital, and you have to understand something. When I was a young man, I didn't understand what mental illness was. I didn't know that I had it. I thought people was trying to drug me for no reason. I was young. I had my first episode at 19 and 20, and they were trying to get me on medicine. And people say, "Why don't you just take your medicine?" But when you're in that state, in that manic state, you think everyone else is crazy and you're fine. And it's just a really horrible predicament. It took years, really years, for me to understand what mental illness was in my own mind, so I could be on medication and treat it correctly, by taking my medication. A lot of people are rebellious against it, and I was a super rebel when I was young. Um, so at one point, I found myself in Staten Island, New York, where I grew up, at South Beach Psychiatric Center, and it was real bad back then. I was talking about in the 90s, and I remember one man who worked there. He was a nurse, a male nurse. He was about 6'3", big, strong guy. And I got into an argument with him because I wanted my keyboard to play, and they had it put away, and they wouldn't let me. So I just yelled at him. So I don't know. He took this as like a personal affront to his masculinity or something, even though I was just a sick person who wanted to play my damn keyboard for a few minutes. So he hit a button, like a panic button, meaning all these guys come flying out with him, and they jumped me, knocked me down. He put his elbow right into my head this way against the floor, and he said, "This is what he goes. This is a nurse to a sick person and a patient in a hospital. We're not treated as patients. We're treated as criminals in these hospitals. And it's really unfortunate, and it's sick, if you ask me." So he said, "Oh, you're a tough guy. Real tough. Real tough." Like I was looking to box him or something. I just wanted to play my keyboard. And then they all stuck me in the quiet room. I was strapped to a table, and they came and they gave a shot into my ass of Haldol or whatever else they put in it. And I got knocked out, and that was the quiet room, and they tie you up, and they shoot you with needles and get you to be quiet until you sleep for 6, 7, 8 hours. That was one thing that happened to me in South Beach. One of the worst hospital experiences I ever had was at a place called Marlborough State Hospital in New Jersey. Um, when I was there, just the craziest things would happen. First of all, there was nothing to do. There was no therapy. There was no program. We would sit in this large room full of these weird chairs, and we would just sit there doing nothing. They got us up like at 8 o'clock in the morning, and we had to sit in this room all day until both of us. We had breakfast, then we had lunch. So we went to the lunchroom, came back, sat in the chairs. At dinner at 5:30 or 6, went there, came back, sat in the chairs till 9 o'clock, and went to sleep. And that was our life for months, just sitting in these chairs. We didn't get any treatment. We got psychiatry. I mean, they put us on medicine, okay, and but we had no. There was no programs. There was on the wall. There was like a list of programs. But we were like, "What the hell is this? There's no programs here. We don't do anything. It's boring." And then, so I was, anyway, they over medicate everyone. I was so medicated, I was just dragging around. And I tried to put 2 chairs together. And this dude, I don't know, he came from the Bronx or something. He didn't like it. So we were pulling the chairs like this. And this guy punched me in the nose, right? And I was young and I was scared. And I was getting like blood on my shoes. I had new new sneakers. And I'm like, he's like, you gonna come back at me? And I'm like, no, get away from me. And they did an X-ray on my nose. It wasn't broken, but I was scared of this dude. Okay, he was a lot bigger than me, and I was young, and bad things happen in these hospitals, really bad. Uh, they're just as violent as jails in a lot of ways, and it's a horrible place to be. So, and other things happened to me at Marlborough State Hospital. Like, at the time, I was taking shots of Prolixin, which is the medication to keep the manic side down of bipolar disorder, and psychotic symptoms, get them away. So I had agreed to this, and I took the shot, and then, and believe me, this happened. And I was like, I don't know, 22, 21, like I said. The nurse would give me the shot. She'd pull down my pants, give me the shot, and then one time, this nurse, this young black lady, and then one time she just decided to just grab my ass like this and squeeze it. So instead of getting a shot, I'm getting molested, and then I tried to report it, and they just blew me off. Like the guy who, because everyone was her friend, I guess, and they were like, I don't know, people just gave me a lot of trouble for it. Nothing happened to her, but I refused to take the shot, and the shot was probably better for me at the time, but I took the pills. And these things go on all the time, at Marlborough State Hospital. And they, at the time I was into drugs, mostly pot and cocaine. So they wanted to put me into they call them cottages. I was in cottages 19, there was cottage 17, there was like 25 of these big houses with big spaces everywhere, and those were the cottages. So one time they said, while you're here, you want to get off to the drugs? And I was like, oh, what do I do? And what do I do? And they're like, well, we're going to go to this cottage, and it's a rehab house. So you'll have groups all day long. And to me, I was like, well, that's good. I could talk to people, and we'll get up, we'll do things. It's probably a lot more fun than, at least I'll be doing things in my mind and talking instead of just sitting on these chairs all day, getting touched by nurses and punched in the nose by other people. And so I said, I'll go. Okay, so I went there, and it was horrible. It was so strict. They got you up like at 5:30 in the morning. I swear it was like the army. And when you're all drugged like that, you just want to sleep. And I'm a night person anyway. And these people drove me crazy in these groups. And I said, listen, I want to go back to the Cottage 19. I just want to go back to where I was, and I'll appreciate it better. I was there for like 3 or 4 months at Marlborough State Hospital in New Jersey. So they said, no. I said, you're here now. Go to all the groups. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take a page out of Gandhi's playbook and be passive resistance. I said, no, I'm not going to any programs. I'm not going to fight with you. If you want to take me there, you have to drag me there. And I just went limp in my bed. And for 2 days, they literally dragged me up and down staircases all around. And I would just be like, no, I'm not moving. I wouldn't go in a chair. They didn't beat the shit out of me, I was lucky. But I drove them crazy enough. After dragging me around, they said, we can't deal with this idiot. And I was just doing passive resistance, which I believe in, which is how Gandhi freed India from the Britons. But you know what? I was just trying to free me from a really terrible place for me at the time. And it would be terrible for anyone. They were just really horrible to you there. So eventually, they got me out. I won, and they got me out, and they released me back to the old cottage. And then they did this thing, very strange, called the hot seat. The hot seat, okay? Now listen, when you have a kidney infection, or a gallstone, or you have diabetes and it's out of control, they put you in a hospital where the nurses and the doctors take care of you and talk to you and treat you like a sick person. Bipolar disorder is a metabolic disorder. It's a chemical reaction in the brain. But you don't get any sympathy for that. We are treated like criminals. Every time I've ever been in a hospital, they take away your phone. They don't give you your music. They don't let you use the computer. And your own computer, you can't have it. They treat us like animals, like criminals, because we're sick. And this is a horrible thing to do to us. And I want it to change one day. And that's why I've written a book. I talked about it. You could buy it off of my website in the notes on the top of the YouTube channel. Bipolar Disorder Through My Eyes, a memoir of hope. And I go very in depth into my stays in mental hospitals and jails and a lot of other aspects of my life. And I've had a lot of good times in my life too. It's been a roller coaster for real. But I'm trying to turn it around now. And I'd like my book to be out there so people know what I've really been through. And I'll continue to do these YouTubes like once a week. And I'm going to talk about a lot of things on these YouTube channels, on this YouTube channel, not just the bad things that happened to me, but what I've studied over the years, which is spirituality, philosophy, religion. I've read a lot. I've done things with Buddhist masters, with Reiki masters. I've studied this, and maybe people say, well, how do you know so much about spirituality? You're just a mental patient. That's the stigma I'm talking about. The stigma of being a leper. We're like lepers, the mental patients and I, because nobody wants us. It's a it's hush hush. Even my own family, my mother doesn't want to tell anybody I was in hospitals. I don't tell them that. That's none of their business. Why? I'm not afraid. I have the real disease that other people have too. It's just a psychiatric disease, but it's a brain disorder, like epilepsy, which I happen to have too. That's a whole other story. But so that's all for today. I just gave you a little taste of it. The hospitals treat us like criminals. They treat us like animals. They don't treat us like sick people, and it's so wrong. So think about it next time you pass a psychiatric hospital, and just thank God you're not in there, because God is at hell for real. Okay, thank you very much. Have a great night. Goodbye.